Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our March 2025 Idea Jam. My name is Stan Baines, and I'm your chair for this evening and committee member for the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity, or CNIC for short. My fellow friends in creativity and members of CNIC that are with us this evening are scattered about on your Zoom screen. So if you could, committee, give us a wave. There we go. Awesome. As always, it's a great pleasure to be back in this hour-long gathering place in our video conferencing environment to share with you our different topics from our hosts and guests, and then to open the discussions that flow with you afterwards. We look forward to this each month and to the in-depth conversations that we have, and we always look forward to that moment where it encourages and sparks our creativity. Our goal here at Scenic is to see our imagination and creativity from the different backgrounds that we come from, the different angles that we see from, and to create and foster open, forward-thinking dialogue. We are always looking to find new ideas, to see things from different perspectives, and to ask questions and explore our inner innovation and imagination. It is our hope that through our discussions that we have at each of these events, that we can expand our minds in new directions, collaborate through idea sharing, create partnerships in our differences, in our sameness, and in our beliefs, and then carry those forward out into our worlds. We want to find and foster our inner and outer creativity through the exploration of our imaginations and ideas, and we love to do this together with each other in this learning and listening space. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that as a resident of Clarence Rockland, Ontario, which sits just outside of the east end of the city of Ottawa in Ontario, Canada, that I'm chairing our meeting on traditional unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. I'm thankful for this opportunity to be able to do so this evening, and as our paths move forward towards togetherness, we remember yesterday with a hope for tomorrow. Our Idea Jams is our space to learn, explore, and share. As part of that, we want you to reflect and participate in the way you are most comfortable with and make this space your own. We want to hear your ideas through conversation. This is a place where talking your ideas out is what it's all about. Your thoughts, your visions, and your ideas help keep our space moving forward so that this is your time to shine. Our format here is very simple. Once our hosts guide our discussions for the evening, we will open the floor to you for our chats and conversations to begin, and we see where our journey will lead us during our time together. Nothing is a bad idea. Every discussion point helps move the idea along. Please take this opportunity to explore and share as your insights may be the spark that lights someone else's creativity fire. Zoom is our platform of choice for this discussion. As you can see, Zoom allows you to participate in many different ways. It has built-in controls that allow you to raise your hand so we can see you when you wish to join in the chat. You can add things to our chat function, which helps to keep the ideas and thoughts flowing, and you can share your emotions with the little emotion reactions as well. Share your ideas your way and join in our jam. So for tonight's jam, we are going to be led by Mary Blatherwick and our guest Matt McGuire as we look at fostering creativity, design, and problem solving through digital technology. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to you, Mary. It's all yours. Oh, I think you're muted. Oh, well, Mary does not seem to be unmuting just yet. So Matt, let me start with you and I'll get Mary to come back when she can for a second.
Sure, no problem.
Oh,
Hi,
wait,
everyone.
Mary, are you here? Yeah, there, okay.
Just came out, sorry. It wasn't working for a minute there. Could be where I am. Wonderful to be here tonight and wonderful to welcome Matt McGuire. Just to say a few things about Matt, Dr. Matt McGuire is a colleague of mine from the University of New Brunswick in the Faculty of Education, and who has a very deep interest in creativity. And he looks at the whole idea of fostering creativity, design, and problem solving through digital technology. Matt is a nationally recognized Canadian educator. His research and teaching practices have been widely acclaimed and acknowledged across the country. He researches and explores digital technologies in education, especially generative AI, creating learning spaces, instructional systems in design, pre-service education development, music, and makerspace pedagogies. Matt is also a musician and a wonderful colleague. of mine. And I would like to now turn the session over to Matt to tell us more about his ideas and to inspire us about his research. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Mary. I, I I feel like we can just hang out and chat now. I don't have to say anything more. You've built me right up. Thanks, everyone. It's really my pleasure and honor to be here. I'm excited about this, and I just want to say before I begin that Mary um, told me before she left UMB, which is where we were together for a couple of years. She said, "Matt, I know you're doing a lot with digital technologies, and that there a lot of people are going to want you to keep focusing on that. But whatever you do, don't lose your focus and your desire and your passion for music and the arts while you're at UMB." So that's one thing I'll never forget. I hear Mary sometimes in the back of my ear when I haven't done enough in those realms. So thank you for that too, Mary. So it's my pleasure to be here. As Mary said, I am a musician and I'm a teacher, and those things have built the person I am. So I'm super pumped and excited to be surrounded by folks like-minded of the arts and creativity. So when Mary and I first discussed presenting today, sharing a little bit about creativity, design, and problem solving through digital technologies, I only kind of see one way to share my thoughts on that, and that's just to kind of share about what I've done considerably through considering digital technologies in creative and problem solving ways as a teacher. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to share a few slides. I probably have too many slides, which is a habit of mine, but I'm going to share a few slides just to kind of showcase some of the work I've been doing with students and showcase their work. Because I think that's what it's all about as educators, is showcasing those creative moments of your students. So I'm gonna pop that on here. And as Mary mentioned, I really do want to have a chat about all of this. And I'll raise some points as I present here, and then we can dig into some of these things. So just a little bit about me. I think it's important that I just tell you where I'm coming from. I was born and raised in New Brunswick, and in Fredericton specifically, and I've lived here my whole life. Love to travel, but I love this is my home, and you can see I played in a band for a decade, and we cut a couple albums, and I love the name of this whole jam session that we're having here. So that's really resonating with me. But yeah, I started playing piano, and I played a few instruments like the drums, and I love to sing, and I would consider myself a guitar player. Don't hold that against me. And I have a beautiful family, three daughters who keep me very busy and happy, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from. But what really grounds me creatively these days is teaching. I was a classroom teacher for several years at the elementary and high school level. I did teach high school music, but really I just loved teaching grade 4 and 3 especially were kind of my favorite places to be. And I've done some work with digital technologies creatively. I love global projects. We created an international cookbook after doing some global projects with some of our friends around the world. We've used digital microscopes to zoom in on and capture the metamorphosis of the darkling beetle, which blew up on YouTube somehow. And we were getting these messages from researchers saying, "Do you mind if I use your video or even reference the work?" And it was just incredible for my students to feel like they were published authors digitally on YouTube that way. This was in way back almost 2 decades ago. And doing creative things with technology has always been a passion of mine. This is a bald eagle project that we did. This is an eagle cam out of Iowa, and we plan on just doing a global project with that. But it turned into us doing creative artworks, learning how to do Zentangles of the drawing the tails of and feathers of eagles, doing poetry, and then even creating our own music video after we wrote lyrics to a song. And this is the song that we wrote about our project experience. I won't let it play too long, but just this is how we were using technologies as forms of expression. Punch this ahead so you can see these amazing kids. And so we would really love, that was my favorite project that I've ever done as a teacher. And I still have students coming up to me today and talking about that one. I like to use green screens and graphic design using things like iMovie. This group over here is an elementary writers club that these boys were, the school was having a tough time engaging them. So at the time I was a technology lead. And so we wrote a story about Mario and a few other people that they're excited to, and we put that into a graphic novel, which was really fun as well. And to see those boys grow and get interested in writing was where it was at. So now I'm a McKenna Fellow in Digital Education and an assistant prof at UMB. And I tell you that because I'm promoting this. I'm helping the department, I should say, promote digital literacy and in our learners these days. And I purposely, through that framework, embedded creativity. That was my main goal of that whole framework. So that's being rolled out here in New Brunswick. But what really, I was kind of a techno enthusiast, you could almost say. I didn't really see the double side, the two sides of technology until I read this amazing book by Ursula Franklin, and it's called The Real World of Technology. It just absolutely changed my life and the way I view technology. And that also led me to consider technology, that technology can be used in very creative ways, but technology, boy, it can stifle creativity as well. So that opened my eyes up to a field called media ecology, which is just the study of technology as environments to look at their effects. And that's really helped me consider not only what technology can do, but what technology can also undo. And so that's McLuhan's big area of interest. If you've heard of McLuhan, obviously that the medium is the message maxim that you've heard. But this idea that technologies are extensions of our bodies and minds and our human faculties is so important when we think about creativity and design and problem solving, to think about how what capabilities we have and how we change ourselves, our values, our beliefs through different things that we use as tools of creative expression and design and to solve problems. So what I'd love to do is just to share with you a technology course that I've been teaching for a few years now. It's called Technology Across the Curriculum. And I just want to showcase a few of the projects that my pre-service educators have been doing over the last 3 years. So here, just to showcase a few of them now, using 3D printers. In the middle here is a light board studio, which was really popular and really effective tool during COVID, but has been now used as almost like a backwards design or a flipped classroom type of tool. We've got some sewing here and a Wacom tablet, and I'll get into a little bit of those. But first, the idea of the course is to provide this hands-on exploration of technologies, but also to do that critically as through that media ecology lens, to look at these technologies and think about how they affect us in good ways and not so good ways as teachers, but as people too. So we use 3D printing, and we've explored Gen AI software, green screens, light boards, a lot of digital production tools like audio and video recording. And what we do is we explore them, we test them, we assess them, and then we even create some technologies of our own. But the whole idea at the end of all of this is for educators who are in the course to leverage a technology to solve a problem or to achieve a goal that they have as an educator. And I'll showcase a few of those, but the course is kind of based on this idea that that technology, digital literacy, is about using, understanding, and creating with technologies. And so they have to create an artifact and look at that. So my course is really, it started out with 16 people, and 2 years in, I had to cap it at 40, just because if we want to keep this intimate and hands-on approach to the course, it's really tough to do that unless with more than 30 or 20 people, really. But I also just love teaching it and love to see people excited about the course as well. So yeah, so we my questions about the course too, just in general, is how can we leverage these technologies as educators to solve our problems and achieve our goals? And how do these technologies change the nature of creativity and problem solving? And as I mentioned, not only what's gained, but what's lost. And I want this, I would love for nothing more for this course to be a compulsory BED course. And the dean is on board with that. But how do you move that to 120 pre-service educators in a real, authentic way? So I just showcase a few of these before we have a chat. So this is a 3D printed prosthetic prototype that Kalen made. Kalen's a phys ed educator, and he had a student in his class who had an accident. They couldn't use their hand, and he designed this prosthetic limb for the student to wear to play floor hockey and badminton. But what I loved, not only the creative design of this, but what Kalen did with it was he printed off a class set and had everyone in his entire class use this item so they would know what it was like to use such a tool, which I absolutely just this is why I teach the course, to see stuff like this. Some other things we've done, Christina designed with wood and screws and milk buckets that she had saved, and she designed a garden for her classroom. And you can see up in the right here, just 3D designed and 3D printed this little holder to be able to hold these milk jugs. And she has this set up in her classroom. Another favorite of mine is Taylor's community board game that she created using a Wacom tablet, some 3D printer software. And Taylor wanted a way for her students in the Ottawa Valley to learn about their community in ways that they could play a board game, but also she incorporated some of the Indigenous ways of knowing in her community. And she 3D printed all of these items that she based the board game off of her own community, and wanted to promote that outgoing community work that is part of her educational value. And then this year, I had a student who looked at the Wolastoqey River here in Fredericton and wanted to have a system with his students where they could be able to look at River Watch. So he took the topography of the river from government records, put it into a 3D design, and he uses water droplets with his students now to test using a scale on how much water it would take to flood certain areas using this 3D printed materials. Just a few other things to share. Kaylee wanted to bring some awareness to her classroom on Indigenous ribbon traditions. And so she created this ribbon skirt using a sewing machine. She had never sewed before the course, which was wonderful. Leah just created this 3D printer color relationship sorter that she's playing around with, that she has her students explore and use and to think about when they're thinking about color relationships. I'm just going to skim through a few. This is all about problem solving as well. And these are two items here. Melanie teaches kindergarten students and grade 1 students, and they lose teeth. And she finds it difficult sometimes when they're trying to learn to read and they're pronouncing things differently. So she actually has this 3D model that she shows them how to form letters using her tongue and the gestures of the mouth. And she uses this model in a way to show what that would look like if you're missing teeth, if you're trying to learn to read. And of course, a 3D printed model to help tying shoes. Tanya created these 3D printed reading aids, which she was saying were really helping out with some students in her room with dyslexia and ADHD to be able to focus their spot on reading and to follow along. That's been very helpful for her. And there's just a whole smorgasbord of these stories that I'm just so proud of my students and their creativity. The last one here, Shaylin just submitted this assignment last week, and I had to share it. She had never used the sewing machine, and her mom sewed a lot, and her grandmother sewed a lot. So she involved her daughter in this project, they learned how to use the sewing machine, and at the same time, she's a science teacher, so she created a fabric sewn version model to represent the alimentary canal in the human body, and she moves marbles through these fabrics to show the process of digestion, which is really, really creative as well. I'm going to blow through this. This
All
is just
right.
a Lightboard Studio demo. And then lastly, I just want to share, I as a instructor and at the university now, I still feel very, very compelled and driven to still be in the school system, to stay connected that way. And so this is just me today actually working at Barker's Point School on some 3D projects for these students. What they did was they created some social emotional learning goals using SMART goals, and they created board games to play and remind themselves and to teach others of some of those social emotional goals that they have. And they use the 3D printers today to design their board game pieces. You can see some of them here are actually even almost Lego based. These are some of the characters over here that they developed themselves by putting these bottoms so the characters wouldn't fall over in the game. And then I'm going to end with this slide because this student is a disengaged student regularly, and she had an amazing breakthrough this week. She created one of the best board games I saw of her peers, and I was mentioning that, and she built this bridge and designed this beautiful board game, and she was just so proud of herself, and we really built her up today. So technology does have that ability to empower and to open up creative minds. And now, that being said, I wanted to chat about these things because it's very important to me that we that I express that technology is not just the great enabler, is that it's also the great disabler in many ways, and in many ways. And that could be a theme that we talk about today. Is technology is just this wonderful creative tool, and it's a tool to solve problems, but it's also a tool that creates a lot of problems as well. So that's a discussion that we might want to venture into today. But other than that, thanks for letting me share, everyone, the great work that my students have been doing, and I hope it's evident that I just love my job so much because of to see them grow in such creative ways.
Thanks, Matt. It was a really excellent presentation, and I'm sure there'll be questions for you coming up.
If I can't immediately see your hand, then you can use the Zoom chat or the Zoom hand raise function, and then I can see that. But I've got Goran, go ahead. Perfect.
Hi, thank you so much for that presentation. Really inspiring and quite amazing to see how, given the same technologies or same set of technologies, people really interpret them differently and they work with them in different ways. So I guess that's at least my first question. There could be so many questions here, but I guess how do you see it from your perspective as a facilitator and as an instructor, as someone that's bringing these technologies and encouraging people to use them? How do you see that intersection between their kind of uniqueness and the technology as a way of kind of expressing that creativity?
Wonderful question, Gorham. Nice to meet you, and thank you. From what I really was found so interesting about what you said there is two people using the same technology in such different ways. And I've seen that so many times, the smart board up on the classroom wall, that's just a glorified projector, which is fine and all, but they're quite expensive and they take up a lot of space and energy. And then there's other folks educators who have managed to find such creative ways to have their students interact with those tools and to express themselves and solve problems of their own. So it's really, I think it has a lot to do with where you position students. And my own pedagogical approach is that in every educational decision that I make, my students are at the center. And I always think I try to approach every pedagogical decision that way. And if we think about that, then we look at technology as a pathway that students can take if once you get to know them and you build these relationships and you find what some of their goals are, you start to help them find what technologies might help them achieve those goals, but you also help them steer away from goals that might as well kind of have harm on them in harm in their creative or get in the way of solving their problems as well. So I think it really does. When we think about technologies, if we have this human-centric approach, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and we see different ways that we can use technology, but also ways that technology uses us. And it really helps us to have that critical view of technology, that awareness that media ecology, for example, kind of promotes.
Scott.
Hi, Matt. Thanks, thanks for sharing. There's um, so much to cover there, but as I'm going through, kind of one of the themes that I noticed was most of the projects bring ideas into the physical world and through technology. And I'm just wondering, have you seen that in your practice so far that uh, there's an extra level of engagement when you allow students to use technology to create something physical versus a digital product?
Mm, good question.
Well, yeah, that's excellent, Scott. Thank you for that, because I kind of just learned a little something about myself too, in that I am a hands-on person, but I never kind of thought about all of these physical creations, bringing physical ideas and artifacts into the world, and there is something so engaging about that. It's that to involve that tactileness and those sensory um, just the entire approach of not only being able to see or hear, but to be able to touch. And yeah, thanks for that. I totally think you nailed that. It's kind of in my, if we're talking about figuring ground, it's kind of in the background for me, but you brought that to light. I think there is something so engaging about that. And I'm thinking about a final reflection of my students. One of them said this week that really resonates with me now is that they said, most of the classes we were all building things and doing things and exploring them with our hands in different ways. And you kept me so engaged. There wasn't a class where we weren't doing that. And that I just appreciated so much. And it was a breath of fresh air for that student that was commenting on that. Almost that other classes maybe weren't as tactile as that one. Thanks for that's an excellent insight, Scott.
Lindsay.
Hi. Yeah, I love this conversation of getting kids really involved with their bodies and in their learning. And one of the things that you had said was about the good and the bad of our inventions, and I can see, like with social media, for example, that the kind of junk food aspect of it, we feel like we're getting our social time, but it's not actually satiating social time. It's called social media, but it's not very nutritious socially. But in the other aspects of technology, like where you're working with maybe the 3D printer, for example, do you think there might be an aspect? Because you did invite us to think about,
Yes. Oh,
not so positive.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that, my relationship with the 3D printer has been tumultuous. Because when I first saw the 3D printers come into education, I thought, oh, this is so gimmicky. People can just go online, they download the thing, and then they print it off. There's no learning there. It's just learning how to push a few buttons on a computer. And I didn't see that as creative at all. And I steered away from that for a bit. And then when I explored the 3D printers down in the Fab Lab at our library, I started to see so many creative ways. And as my skills developed, I realized that you can start from scratch and build things. And what I've done with the 3D printer at home is, my daughter's knob of her humidifier snapped off. And instead of me buying a new humidifier, I just figured out how to print off a new knob. And then my light switch, somehow the dimmer switch went missing. So then I designed that, and our bird feeder lost its bottom, and I designed the bottom of that. And I started seeing things through the lens of 3D printing. As
Yeah.
McLuhan would say, like, now that this medium is now taking over my life. But at the same time, I see the waste of 3D printing. I see the now movement of people designing things with physical objects that are like even found objects, creating bridges and ideas, molding things with their hands can now it's transferred over into this realm of the digital and this realm of plastic and printing things that it can be what was the word I was going to say kind of gimmicky, and it can kind of teach us that we can just get computers to do these natural things that we used to be able to do ourselves. In some ways, I do fear that there'll be a great loss of human capacity from things like 3D printers. So,
Yeah, the
and just
design.
to finish, yes, I'm just going to say that's why I tell my students, do not think I'm promoting any of these technologies,
Yeah.
blindly promoting.
Well, I can see and hear the proliferation of design thinking and design work and how that's generated by using the 3D printer. But the making and the fine motor coordination and the understanding of what different materials are and how we could, explore our environment of found objects and make the knob and make the bottom and make with more than
Hmm.
plastic. And also,
Hmm.
so I get a kind of an indulgent, like you say, gimmicky, but there's also a little bit of an indulgence with
Hmm.
plastic. Ah. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lindsay.
Okay.
I have a question. So I may be dating myself here, but coming back from a time, and I can't remember what the word is in English, but we used to call it bricolage in French, where we
Hmm.
building with that old mucilage glue and the white glue, and you're building houses out of construction paper and popsicle sticks and that. So do you see a shift in not just the creativity, but in how the innovation happens when you can deal with sourced things versus,
Hmm.
like, I mean, I remember, a class of 36 kids crammed in a portable all trying to use popsicle sticks, where there's something different when you have to like totally generate that on your own versus using digital technology. So coming from there, how do you kind of see that in relation to today with the technology? That's a little convoluted, but
No, that's great, Stan. I see that. What struck me about what you said is the word balance. We absolutely need to uphold a balance in our own lifestyles, but yeah, in the school system, in the classrooms. It's just because I can now print everything on the 3D printer doesn't mean I should. And there's such value in being able to look at things and find ways to use them creatively for ideas that you have or just to explore. And if you start to look at, I mean, you could say, well, the 3D printer can do that and the 3D printer can do that. That's not creative. That's dependency. And I think um, to even from an environmental standpoint, I think that that's a scary avenue to go. Excuse me, because we have so many uses for the things around us that are currently useless, we could say. So yeah, I think that is so important to because just because in that moment you might be looking at popsicle sticks and other things around your classroom to create an idea that you have in your mind, it might be important in that moment. But what's more important is that process of actually doing that and having that process stay with you and spill over into other avenues of your life and other contexts. So important. Rather than just sitting in front of the screen and having the 3D printer there, you're in the same situation every single time.
Mm.
well, and that was going to be kind of my follow-up is that looking forward, like if you can maybe take a moment and slightly think ahead, I can see where these things were introduced and we all kind of went, well, what is the good of this? This is rather gimmicky. Whereas and now we can see this. Well, just like with, many other things within the education system where small things lead to massive changes later on. So, for instance, home ec is now a thing of the past. So, a lot of our younger generation doesn't really know how to cook because they can microwave everything. Things like woodworking shop and things like that have kind of taken a huge disappearance. Can you see the addition of some of these technologies removing basic functionalities to the humans that we're about to output out into the adult world? Like, I know you may not have that answer entirely, but as somebody who works within that, can you see where this will be not just a benefit, but as you alluded to earlier, there may be some negative attributes to some of this as well, right? Like, we're just throwing that out.
Yeah, that's a great follow-up, Stan. And what I think about is that is anyone here familiar with McLuhan's four laws of media? I hope I don't mess this up, but McLuhan and Marshall McLuhan and his son Eric were kind of being criticized for their outlook on technology and how it shapes people. But because a lot of scientists were saying there's no evidence of this. Let's do a study where there's some empirical evidence. Show us some stats. So the McLuhans weren't those types of folks, I guess, but they did come up with the four laws of media, which in order to kind of satisfy those critics. And they said that every technology, regardless of if it's a fork, a computer, or a car, has four attributes, four laws that no more, no less. And one of those laws is that every technology obsolesces another technology. And that's really important, because if we're thinking about the QWERTY keyboard obsolescing handwriting, that there are some heavy costs that happen with that transition. We learn, I'm probably telling you folks something that you already know, but we learn so much when we write something down. There's that relationship with writing. It becomes physical. It increases our memory. It increases our ability to relate to what we're writing and remember it and internalize it. If we move that to typing on a keyboard, it's not just about switching mediums. There is a heavy cost, and there's a gain of efficiency and production as well. But with that, there's those values, and that's what I'm most fearful of with our technologies and the way we approach them in education these days, is that we think if it's shiny and new that it's better, and that is certainly not the case. If it's a new technology, it has an inseparable amount of costs and benefits. And I say inseparable because quite often you'll see, well, it's a tool. If we only use it in the right way, then it'll benefit us. And I think I would challenge that notion to say that that's not true. That most technologies can't be used in certain ways to only have the benefits without the costs. I think they're inseparable.
Awesome. Thank you. Kathy.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I was thinking, from having taught design and technology and art for, I don't know, 50 years, 30 years technology, and then a lot of computers in the classroom courses, that with a 3D printer, I'm thinking, okay, you got 36 students in a classroom. How many 3D printers would you have? And I really liked looking at the games and the things that the students were creating. But I was just thinking of the logistics of it. And I've been in some classrooms where they said, oh yeah, there's a lineup for the 3D printer and we have to program it, and we have to go out of classroom time all the time to try to get some time to be able to finish our projects. So I just wondered how many 3D printers you would have for a group of 36. Just to sort of describe the logistics of that, because it's a task. I understand the hands-on, the creativity and everything, and I think it's great integrating it with the games, but I thought I'd like you to just mention something about that.
Excellent question. And I see that a lot. We see you get a class set of laptops and everyone spends the first 15 minutes just trying to log into them, right? And what a waste of time. But in the case of the 3D printers, how I approach that is I team teach the course with the head librarian of the Research Commons. And what we do is we split those 36 in half, and I will take them and we will work on something like coding. 14 of us will learn about coding, and we'll do some coding to learn how that language works, what its benefits are, and some of our fears of that, and some of the effects that we see that we don't like in education. Those other 14 folks or whoever will go over and work the 3D printers. And there are 8 3D printers in the library. So that means that 2 people are roughly on one 3D printer. We pair them up and we give them small tasks to be able to explore the programs and learn the skills around 3D printing. And if that happens on a Tuesday, then on the Thursday is the second week of classes, and we rotate those 2, we switch them, and then that's kind of how we roll it, because it's not good pedagogy to have people sitting around twiddling their thumbs just waiting.
Thanks for that. And I wondered if at some point you could put the information on the book you mentioned in your slides. I thought that looked interesting, but I didn't get to copy it down fast enough. So I'm glad that you have so many 3D printers, because when they first came out, there'd be one 3D printer for like a large group of people. So you're very fortunate that you were able to get that. So thanks for explaining that.
Thank you. Great question.
Maria.
Hi. Thank you so much for your talk. It was very interesting. I was just wondering if you could maybe describe a little bit, because you were mentioning that one technology excludes the other, right? I like technology as a tool to develop my work, but I always get back to writing, at the same time I'm doing digital work and things like this. So I wonder how the kids handle this. Are they going directly to digital tools, or some people are going to more like a, hands-on and then go for digital after? How is the process of the kids? Do you have only one process for all of them, or kind of try to embrace everyone's skills at the same time? And how does it work for you?
Yeah, great question. I think that comes down to offering choice in as many opportunities and circumstances as I possibly can, to offer as many tools as possible to help students, approach the task that's at hand for them. Sometimes things are contrived. We'll set up technologies to deliberately try them and explore them. And then sometimes we'll have projects that are more goal orientated, that students come to certain technologies on their own to use. And that could be a paper and pencil, or that could be an iPad with the camera on it, or it could be a microphone and a recorder. So it basically, I try and encourage students to think about, what is the goal I'm trying to reach? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? What's the task I'm trying to complete? And what are ways I can do that? And then not only that, but I try to extend that and say, how did that technology influence how you solve that problem? And then when you solve that problem, what new problems were created? And quite often they'll realize that sometimes it's the technology itself that will create new problems again. And so, yeah, I guess in short, Maria, I try to offer as many choices as I can. We explore the tools on rudimentary levels, but I always appreciate someone wanting to go back to a certain technology that they feel is best to get the job done.
Thanks so much for the answer. I just have one more question. Returning your question from your slides, actually, how do you see the digital technology influencing the problem solving? Do you see a difference between the digital and non-digital? Like, how do you see this, if it enhances the problem solving, if it helps the students to solve it more? How do you see this process?
One thing I would say about that, Maria, is that I see it influencing their values and their behaviors. And I see that happening all over. So we have this generative AI is a great example right now. Generative AI, everyone's talking about it right now. But you know what? Everyone talked about every single technology that had a big societal uptake in the same ways that they're talking about generative AI. But these things, when we use digital tools to solve our problems or reach our goals, we're influenced, we're shaped by that, by using that tool, and we come to value it in a certain way. And then those values extend beyond us, and they perpetuate um, this love and use of technology. And so that's why we don't often see technologies coming back from the past identical as their uses were. I think about, when technologies, this is another one of McLuhan's laws, is that what does a technology retrieve when it comes out? A new technology will retrieve a technology from the past. But the thing is that technology can no longer be what it was because it's living in a new environment where different things are happening, right? The simplest one I can think of is, when I walk into a classroom and I see a chalkboard being used. A lot of professors will still use a chalkboard, but in the K to 12 classroom, does anyone know what they're using chalkboards for? Is there someone in the chat?
No.
Well, from what I've seen, they're using it as a fridge for fridge magnets to hang up students' work on. Right? They're still magnetic, so they're using the chalkboard as a fridge to hang their student work. They're not actually writing on them anymore. But just I think to answer your question, digital tools, they influence us, they shape us, and they perpetuate the idea that digital is the way to go. And I just want to emphasize that balance is so, so key. We need a very strong non-digital tools promoted and used in our classrooms to counterbalance the effects of digital tools. We cannot lose the non-digital.
So
Thank you so much, Matt.
thanks.
Thank you.
Do you see a value then in hybriding, right? Hybriding technology. So for instance, like I use a computer so much right now, my handwriting is atrocious, right? Penmanship has gone like well out the door. So do you see value then in that constant move forward and we abandon certain things, or how do we find that balance? Like how do we continue to move forward with creativity and being imaginative with these technological tools, but retaining some of the solid true methods that have brought us, like as I look across the screens here, like granted we're slightly different generations, but most of our learning was all the same. So this major shift to how we're doing things has taken place in the last 30 years behind us. So can you see value then as a teacher and being in that world in retaining the true solid ways we were learning before, but integrating them in with technology? Or do you see the technology sort of eradicating how we were doing things before?
Yeah, I would emphasize that we always have a choice in how and when we use certain technologies. And I don't have a techno-determinist view of technology in that way because I do believe in human autonomy. And I think to address when a technology is lost, if a technology in education is lost, we can look at that and say, what traits, what values, what practices that are creative, that are part of us, are we losing with this technology? And how can we keep those things in something else or in different ways? Now, of course, one of those ways is to not lose the technology, is to keep those traditional ways and to value them and to stand up for their use and to fight for the reasons why they are so good for human beings. But I think, some of those technologies become obsolescent and we don't have access to them. So we think, all right, if we lose handwriting, then we're going to lose that physical connection. We're going to lose all those things we kind of talked about earlier. So I'm going to actually, when I go to a conference, I'm taking my iPad and my stylus and I'm taking notes with that way. And I'm gonna remember that differently than if I took it with the typewriter or the QWERTY keyboard, or if I took it in an audio recording with your phone, or for example. So it's really making a conscious effort to say, all right, if I go to this conference, I want to remember, and I don't want to be just clicking on those keys. I want to be present, and I want to be internalizing that right through my pen. And if I don't have a book and a pen, I can surely do it on an iPad, because I can also have a camera to take a picture of the slides if I need to, and write right over those. So I guess that would be kind of a hybrid way to do that, Stan, is to kind of have if you do like apps, you can get an app. You're watching a slide and you're taken by that slide, rather than try and capture it all in the moment, lose what the person's saying, and then the slide moves on. You only have half of it. I can snap a shot of it, flip it right over on my phone, and make my own personal reflections on top of that. So I do think it's really valuable to recognize those things and to endure them.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you. Fred.
Matt, I was just dawned on me in your slides, there were a whole bunch of individual projects. Do you ever have teams? Because that seems to be the modern work space is teams with different skill sets and drawing together to collaboratively produce things. What would you say to that?
Yes, I offer in most of my assignments and projects and the activities in the classroom, I offer the option to work as one, two, or a smaller group in these activities. And I probably showcased a lot of individual ones today, but I've done a lot of group work. And I think it's a whole class group work is very important as well for community purposes alone. I was teaching a grade 4 class one day, and I was teaching a unit on nutrition, and I held up a carrot and I said, who knows where this comes from? And a hand went up and said, the superstore. And I said, okay, yeah, that's where you get it. But like, where does a carrot come from? And someone else said, oh, I get those at Costco. And another kid said, I get those at Sobeys. And I thought, wow. So, there was this disconnect in that classroom. And so what did we do? We got a grant. We brought in community members. We tilled a section in the backyard of the school. We put up a fence. We learned how to plant a garden and how to care for that garden. And then in the harvest in the fall, we created dishes and we fed the community. So that would be an example of a whole class project based on a real need that I saw in the classroom to kind of address that issue. But also, I just think it's if someone has an idea in their mind and they want to collaborate with others on it, or they collaborate together and come up with those ideas, that's super valuable. And I promote that. So I guess when it comes down to it, I just give choice whether students want to work alone or in groups. I try to do that as much as possible.
Excellent. Last question for the evening. Over to you, Luke. Good to see you.
Thanks, Stan. Hello, Matt. My question has to do with generative AI and creativity. As a musician, I'm sure you appreciate what's happening with the generative AI in music. The CEO of Suno AI was recently quoted as saying, it's not really enjoyable to make music now. I wanted to get your perspective. What does it mean when generative AI will do the reading, writing, painting, and composing for us? Any thoughts you'd like to share on that?
Yes, I do not like that idea one bit, Luke. And I think I hold on to hope, and I understand the music is such a personal thing, and it can be such a collaborative and personal thing as a group when you're playing together as well. And humans, I have faith in humans that we're not going to go there. We're not going to say that this generative AI music is good. We're not going to be drawn to it, because music is about expression and emotion and experiences. And if you're aligning with the robot on their musical purposes and their creations, I don't see a connection there. I don't see people valuing that. And then there's the whole piece about live performance too, that is so important, that it's got to be the human performing and making mistakes and having moments of inertia and doubt in all of these circumstances, I think music is too personal for us to lose that aspect. I hope. Now, of course, people will say generative AI is going. I mean, just last week I read that some amazing musicians and composers would compose. They'd get generative AI to compose the first half of the song, and they would have to finish, and then they would switch roles and have generative AI finish their songs. These are interesting ways you can get ideas for your music and think about music differently based on these relationships and experiences. But I certainly don't think that we're going to leave the creating solely to do for the generative AI for us to actually listen to and enjoy. Have you heard that new record by, Robo 7? It's just a hit. I can't see it happening. And if it happens, then it's not a world I want to be living in, Luke.
Thank you. Thank you all for the wonderful questions this evening. Unfortunately, as always, we've made it to that magic time where we have to bring things to a close. So I want to thank you, Matt, for a very engaging discussion. Thank you, Mary, for introducing us to Matt, and thank you all for joining into our discussions. So this part's going to be a little long, but hang with me. You're going to want to hear what I'm going to have to say. So we want you to know that we are socially connected. So check out our website, and this one's going to be important for what I'm going to say afterwards, at www.canadiannetworkforimaginationandcreativity.com. It is one long word. We have our updated idea jams list. We are working diligently on getting our YouTube under control so that our videos are going to be there for you to see. You can find us online within that website. Check out our bios, check out more information, and see what's coming up. So with that, we want you to know that on Thursday, April 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, you are invited to join us for the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity's first roundtable debate. So this will be our first time hosting an event like this, and we really want you to be part of it. So we're going to be posing the question, what is the future of creativity? So please join us as we speak with Dr. Lynn Fells, Tyler Simmons, and Dean Verger as they debate the question, and then hear from you on where we see the future of creativity going. So this is exactly why we love our idea jams, because it leads to so much more. So this should be a great hour-long session, and we really don't want you to miss out. So please check out our website for more information. If you're not getting emails from us, sign up so that we can be emailing this information out to you. We will be using the same Zoom number that we use for this. So if you have it automatically in your Zoom list, then you know where to find us. As we close for the evening, I want to thank you again for joining us. This is always so exciting, and it's always such a pleasure to spend our Thursday evening with you. Be back with us again next month after the 3rd on April 17th, as we're going to be having Jackie Lawrence talk with us. So on behalf of all of us here at Scenic, we thank you again for spending your Thursday evening with us. Thank you for sharing your creativity and imagination with us, and we look forward to seeing you again on April 3rd and again on the 17th. Good night, everybody, and have a great evening.
Good night. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Great, Matt.